All right. Hey, well, welcome. I got to make sure we put this on mute. Looks like we are good to go. We are on mute. Um, Hello, Authentic Leaders. Today we are trying something new here on the Authentic Leader Live, and it's live on LinkedIn. I was recently granted creator mode on LinkedIn, which allows me to post live video here on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty excited about this. There's a good chance that this LinkedIn Live will be sloppy. So I hope that you will forgive me because this is just my first time. I remember when I started my business, what was it like? In 2015, I made the decision and committed to doing live videos, or not live videos, but just videos at all in the very beginning. And I remember how terrible I was in the very beginning. What I promised myself was that if once I get really good at this, that is when I will. That's when I'm going to post on or post my videos. I got to close this out. Sorry about that reaction there. I want to make sure that all this works the way it's designed to. In any event, I remember that I wanted to wait until I get good at it because it was so bad. I was just so uncomfortable. It's weird how when you get on video, how uncomfortable you are, even when it's just being recorded and nobody can actually watch it. But then I kind of coached myself and I decided that, hey, if I don't go live, if I don't actually publish these things, I'm never going to get better at this, which is exactly what I would tell clients that I work with. So that's what I did. And you can actually go onto my YouTube channel right now. You could probably search and find my very first videos and see how bad they were if you are so inclined to take a look at that. But that's the same thing today. Honestly, I'm a little bit nervous about going on Facebook, or not Facebook Live, but LinkedIn Live. I've been on Facebook Live, but now LinkedIn Live, that's a whole new ball game for me. So I hope that you'll forgive me if I'm a little rusty today and it doesn't maybe go as smooth as what you might be used to with these LinkedIn Lives. But I'm just glad that you're here. Today, I'm going to talk about what's missing from your year-end planning. And it's about the 7 components that are often known, but are also often overlooked when planning for next year's success. Now, Authentic Leader Live, it often becomes a future podcast episode. So I've got more than 100 episodes that are out there and they're in the bank right now. And this is not an advertisement. But if this ultimately becomes a podcast, I often include this as an announcement. The Authentic Leader Show is the podcast about technology leaders who are crushing the bell curve of team performance and leading high-performing technology teams. This is the time of year when most professionals are thinking about their plans for success next year, including me, right? Maybe you're also doing this. You might be required to do this for your job where you're working with your boss, determining and creating the goals for next year, cascading down goals. I know that was very common in my corporate career and corporate experience. But you also may just be one of those people who kind of take the bull by the horns. You're the kind of person who is self-motivated to create your own plan. Either way, it's very likely if you're watching and you're still watching right now that this is something that you do and that a part of who you are. So in any event, you're probably thinking about how you are going to be successful next year. Now, success-oriented professionals are typically pretty good at annual planning. I'm not here to tell you that you're doing anything wrong at all. One thing I know that it just feels good to be organized, doesn't it? Those who are planners, it just feels great to get your plan together. It feels good to be organized. It's great to think about and plan for success. It also just creates momentum and energy as you go into the next year. But in January and February, your personal success plan, it begins to fail for a few key reasons. The first is that you miss some key and necessary components to carry out your momentum throughout the rest of the year. Or you figure out your process for planning as you are creating your plan. So you might not go into it with a complete plan about how you're going to create your plan and just kind of make it up as you go and start to discover what aspects you might be missing. So you're literally creating your plan for planning as you are planning. And then what also happens is you really haven't allocated enough time and attention necessary to create a solid plan. And as a result, you don't even know what you are missing and wonder why you aren't creating the success that you planned for as you go through your year. Your plan ends up sometimes disorganized, and your priorities kind of end up being sacrificed when very urgent and important issues they surface in the reality of your everyday work. I mean, we know the reality of that, right? And you may have started your plan, but at some point you kind of announce to yourself, I think this is probably good enough, but you really don't know. You don't necessarily have confidence to know, do you really have enough or not? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. So, hey, I've definitely been there. And back in 2010 is a story I tell, where one of my neighbors, kind of like me, was also a planner. Actually, still is a planner. And it was in 2010. We would go to this neighborhood New Year's Eve party, which is very common. And as we're talking back in the corner, which we actually had done many, many years in a row at this same New Year's Eve party, and we just talked about, just very informally, what we plan for next year, what we're expecting for next year, and what we're even excited about in the next year. Literally saying the words like, man, next year is going to be different. It's going to be better than any other year that I've had. But it was in 2010 when I think we both realized it, really exactly the same time. We both got really honest and said, if we're really honest with each other, we're about where we were last year, or we certainly have not accomplished what we had hoped to accomplish last year when we were having the same conversation. Really, we should be much further than we are right now. We were really frustrated with ourselves. Maybe you found yourself also being there. If you've ever had the habit of making annual plans, but then honestly look in the mirror and have to say to yourself, I'm not really much further than where I was last year. Well, if you said that ever, then what we're going to talk about today is for you. Now, I love working with professionals to not only build their plans, but also to continue the momentum that they create. And I encourage you to comment below, or to DM me with your questions, your challenges, your obstacles, really that are keeping you from realizing your success plan. When we get to the end of today, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions, and we'll talk about those questions, challenges, and obstacles. Now, as I said earlier, that planners, they often miss some key and necessary components when planning for next year. Not everyone misses all the same things. I mean, everyone listening probably does one or more of these things very well. You might do even most of these things very well. But I promise you, today you're going to hear at least one thing, or maybe it's several, that you will say, you know what, I need to add that component to my planning, or I just need to really step up my game on that component that maybe I'm already doing, but maybe not doing it at the level that I really should be doing it. I mean, I don't want you to be lost in January and February when you start losing your momentum. Now, I'm going to share with you what I say are the 7 components that you need to successfully plan for next year. I'm going to share those with you right now first, and then I'm going to go into sharing more about each one of them. I'm not going to make you wait till the very end. Okay, so I've got this new program where I am actually adding things along the way. So you might see some new things here that will hopefully help with the production of this. So in any event, the very first one is to identify your aspirations. Number 2 is overcome your obstacles. Number 3 is establish your goals and your intentions. Number 4, manage your time and priorities. Number 5 is to establish a productivity system, really a system that works for you. Number 6 is create a tracking system that you'll actually use. And then lastly is, of course, continuing your momentum and remaining accountable to yourself and to the commitments that you've made. So this may seem like a long list, but bear with me on this, because I want you to see why these 7 are necessary. And I've been to many planning programs. I've gone through all of them, okay? But most are one and done programs, be quite honest. And even if it's a several day program, I've even been to ones that are several weeks consecutively. And then what really happens is that it is one and done. As soon as you're done, then it's up to you now. And you're going to need more than that if you were going to carry your plan through for the entire year and celebrate next year. I'd love to see you celebrate next year. So let's get into more detail with each one of these components. So the first one I identified was to identify your aspirations. What do you really know, or do you really know what you want? Do you really know what you want? There's a book that I recently reread. It's called The Alchemist, and it is a great resource. If you've not read that book, I highly recommend it. It's also very good on an audio book because it tells a story. It's kind of a parable kind of story, but there are some really fantastic gems in there that are great takeaways. For some people, it might be a little bit woo for some, but just trust me on this one. This is definitely a book that I would recommend. And the book, it's all about really finding what this book calls is your personal legend. That's the phrase that the book uses. But what they're really talking about here is it's what you are meant to become in your life. It's really why were you put on earth? And the reason that identifying your aspirations is so important, I found it to be foundational to your success plan, because everything after this has the filter of your aspiration. All the other components has this filter of your aspiration. So you've got to really kind of get that right. Now, number 2 is overcoming obstacles. We all have obstacles. I have obstacles. You have obstacles. If you're alive, you have obstacles, because if we didn't have obstacles, we would already be where we intend to be. Wouldn't you agree? So it's all about really addressing what are your upper limits, identifying what are your upper limits. It's subconscious. Your mindset is probably one of the most powerful forces in your success. And it's about getting your mindset straight. It's about really identifying and overcoming your beliefs about your limits and unlocking what you are fully capable of living. We are our own biggest obstacles, and it's not outside forces or anything else that we can't control. It really comes down, it's you. It's me. I'm preventing my own success, and you are probably preventing your own success too, whether you want to admit it or not. Now, number 3 is establishing goals or intentions. Of course, we can't talk about annual plans without talking about goals. Goals can give you, goals, I think, sometimes have a negative connotation because I think that they've been misused in many ways. Now, you can rename it anything you like. One that I've used is intentions instead. It's really about being clear about what you intend to accomplish. It's also really, it's not about achieving your goals or your intentions. It's really about becoming the kind of person who achieves those intentions that you've got. I remember it was Hal Elrod, I think, in a podcast interview. I remember him talking about that. And it doesn't matter so much about achieving your goals. All goals really do is to help you to become that person who achieves goals like that. And if you achieve the goals as well, then fantastic, right? That's really good. Now, a missing component that most people do not include is your list of actions that are necessary to accomplish your goals or your intentions. Now, you don't need to have an entire list. People will be satisfied with creating their goals, and that you wonder why they don't go any further. And it's really because you've not taken the one next step. The one next step is just identify what's 1 or 2 things that you need to start that goal. And that's all it takes many times. I can't tell you the number of times where I did not have any idea how I was going to accomplish this goal. And what I just did is identify what's the very first thing that I need to do. And after that, what's the second thing? And that's it. And it's amazing to me how often that once you do that first step or second step, what is revealed to me is what's the next one after that. You sometimes can't even see what the next steps are until you start with the first step. So that's what I encourage you to do. Just identify what's 1 or 2 steps that just get you started. Small thing, doesn't have to be a big thing at all. Number 4 is managing your time or your priorities. Now, the late Stephen Covey said that it isn't about time management. Time management is thrown around all the time. What it really is about priority management. Now, I first heard that in the 1990s when I first started seriously getting into planning systems. Now, of course, time cannot be managed, right? We all have the exact same amount of time, but we oftentimes call it time management. Time is going to just continue on forever and ever. And I'm sure you've probably heard that before. The key really is all about being very clear about what your priorities are and then establishing a system that gives you the confidence that you're working on the most appropriate priority at this time. Now, sometimes your priorities might might have to take a back seat to something that's very urgent and has to be acted upon right now, right this very moment. But you just have to have confidence as long as once you're very clear about the priorities and the things you really must accomplish and rightly prioritize your activities and even your to-do list, then is where you can finally increase the confidence that whatever you're working on right now is the most appropriate use of your time. All right. The fifth one is about establishing productivity systems. You have to establish your own personal system that fits you. And this really covers the gamut from getting up crazy early to be more productive than everybody else. We've all heard that. Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and accomplish more than what most people do before 9 a.m. Now, I have honestly not had really great success at doing this. So I don't want you to judge yourself. Like, find what's the system that's really going to work for you. I do get up early, probably earlier than maybe a lot of people, but to get up that early, it just does not motivate me. I am a morning person. Once I'm up, I'm good, right? But you got to find, where is it that you are efficient? Where are you most effective? And find that system that works for you. It's really additionally about creating routines that fit you. It's routines that support your goals and serves your priorities. It's also about feeding your brain through podcasts, audio, and even paper books. Maybe it's attending conferences, training programs, or workshops, joining an accountability group, or creating book clubs, or attending a book club. So those are the kinds of things we're talking about. We're talking about establishing productivity systems. Now, number 6 is about creating a tracking system that you'll actually use, right? There's all kinds of tracking systems out there. Believe me, I've tried them all. Some of them work for me, some of them don't work for me, but I've tried them and I've given it the real sophomore try, if you will. But tracking systems is something that has really taken me more than 20 years of work, and I feel like I'm still perfecting it. I've used paper planners. I've self-designed spreadsheets, and I've done sorting systems through spreadsheets. I've used online programs, free and purchased, also phone apps that are also free and purchased. In many cases, I've actually really gone back to paper systems. I've found some benefits to all of those, but I've also found some drawbacks. And what's working for me right now in my season, it's a paper-based system largely. I still have some electronic systems I still use, but paper systems are what's working for me. It's just imperative that you have a system that works for you and how you work. And this is a no judge zone here. No one gets to tell you, oh, you've got to do this, or that's not going to work unless you do. No, you've got to find a system that works for you. And I love helping leaders to find those systems that really truly work for them. And then number 7 is, it's of course continuing your momentum and remaining accountable. Without momentum and accountability, this is going to all fall apart because you're human, right? We're all afflicted with the same thing about being human. The key here is really the ending component that will make or break your success for next year. So simply have a plan for how you will maintain your momentum. Determine what is it going to be that you're going to be dedicated to, and you'll be disciplined to ensure you're containing your momentum. You all know what it's like, right? When we ride a bike, and you will eventually coast to a stop if you don't continuously pedal. And that's what we're talking about, is having something in place that will help make sure that you continue to pedal, you continue to gain momentum, you continue to build upon the speed that you have. The same thing's true if you have no momentum plan, right? So you've got to have that. And this is what I've found that are missing from these planning systems. 11 years ago is what, Ray and I, we got together on New Year's Eve, as I shared at the very beginning of this recording. And what we did is we ended up creating our own accountability group, and we held each other accountable to the weekly commitments that we made to ourselves and also to each other. So again, in summary, let's go over these. So number 1 is identify your aspirations. Number 2 is you need to overcome your obstacles and be clear about those real obstacles that you have in your life to accomplishing your plan. It's establishing goals, or maybe you'll call them intentions. It's managing your time, or maybe better said, you're managing your priorities. Establishing a productivity system that fits you. Creating a tracking system as well that will also the one that you will use. And then don't forget the last one. It's really about continuing your momentum and remaining accountable to those commitments that you make to yourself and to others. So I hope that you took some notes today, and that you've made some commitments as well. What are the commitments that you're going to make today? If you can relate to anything that I shared today, or if you have any questions at all, I'll be glad to answer them now. If you would rather, you can also just DM me, and or just reach out to me through my LinkedIn profile. So let's take a look here and see if we've got any questions. It looks like we don't have any questions right now. But this is also going to remain live. So this will still be posted. If you are watching on a replay and you have questions, I will keep track of that, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn if you're watching this somehow. I love to connect with people and follow them. And you can find me at /I am Christopher Jones. You can also find more information and other free resources when you go to ChristopherRJones.com. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope you'll come back next week for another Authentic Leader Live. And also just want to thank you for allowing me to do a little bit of stumbling with my very first LinkedIn Live. I hope that it was smooth enough and you were able to follow along. And additionally, would love to hear your feedback. If you think that I could improve upon this and do better, I'm probably one of the easiest people to give feedback. I'd love to know what you think. Or if you like something and you want to make sure that I keep doing a component of what we did here today, I would love to hear that feedback from you as well. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you all next week.